It often feels like the Israeli state can just act with impunity, raining terror down on a trapped population with no one and nothing able or willing to stop them. But just below the surface, a doom spiral for the Israeli state may already have been set into motion, a mounting economic calamity that threatens to collapse the state entirely. The BDS movement, in their wildest dreams, could never have imagined the economic toll that the Israeli state is basically inflicting on itself right now as we speak. So here are the details. Mondo Weiss compiled what data is available on the Israeli economy, and the picture is really quite dire. Quote, over 46,000 businesses have gone bankrupt, tourism has stopped, Israel's credit rating was lowered, Israeli bonds are sold at the prices of almost junk bond levels, and the foreign investments that have already dropped by 60% in the first quarter of 2023 as a result of the policies of Israel's far-right government before October 7th show no prospects of recovery. The majority of the money invested in Israeli investment funds was diverted to investments abroad because Israelis do not want their own pension funds and insurance funds or their own savings to be tied to the fate of the state of Israel. Now, those business closures, they may actually just be the beginning. An estimate cited by the Times of Israel found that up to 60,000 businesses might close before 2024 is over. This is a greater impact than the COVID pandemic shutdown and would only be exacerbated by an expanded war with Hezbollah and with Iran, the impacts of which, frankly, would be unfathomable. Just think about the realities right now, though, for the Israeli economy. Israeli workers have been called up to participate in the Gaza annihilation, undercutting the country's much celebrated tech sector. Another key sector, tourism, has completely dried up. Construction is at a standstill because the Palestinians that Israel relies on as cheap labor force have been banned from coming to work outside of the occupied territories. Israeli attempts to import foreign workers as a new source of cheap labor have been largely unsuccessful. Turkey has announced a ban on exports to Israel, further crippling the construction industry. And efforts to import from other nations are hampered by the efforts of the Houthis to block shipping into Israeli ports. 250,000 Israelis continue to be internally displaced as a result of the tit-for-tat war with Hezbollah, and panic has set in as Iran threatens a large response to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh that occurred on their soil. Now, perhaps the biggest body blow, however, was Intel pulling out of a planned $25 billion investment in the state of Israel, an indication that capital is engaged in their own self-interested BDS, weighing the ever-rising risks of operating in Israel to be greater than the benefits. Even more trouble, though, could be ahead. Here again is Mondo Weiss. Israel's power grid, which has largely switched to natural gas, still depends on coal to supply demand. The biggest supplier of coal to Israel is Colombia, which announced that it would suspend coal shipments to Israel as long as the genocide was ongoing. After Colombia, the next two biggest suppliers are South Africa and Russia. Without reliable and continuous electricity, Israel will no longer be able to pretend to be a developed economy. So while the US will apparently never cut Israel off of literally anything, including the 2,000-pound bombs that they use to drop on schools where displaced children are sheltering, the rest of the world apparently not so keen to continue doing business with this terrorist regime. If you see a significant brain drain due to unending war and overt fascism, according to Shael, quote, the state of Israel will not exist in the long term. Bolstering this point, Mondo Weiss quoted an Israeli economist, Professor Dan Ben-David, as saying that the Israeli economy is held together by 300,000 people, the senior staff in universities, tech companies, and hospitals. Once a significant portion of those people leaves, he says, we won't become a third world country, we just won't be anymore. Has this exodus already begun?